Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into what is, without a doubt, the single biggest piece of pharma news we expect to see for years.
Yeah, this is a big one.
In December 2025, the FDA gave its approval to the once-daily oral semaglutide 25 milligram pill. You know, it's the Wegovy tablet.
So this is the shot, the weight loss shot, now in a pill.
Exactly. And it's poised to just, fundamentally shift the entire healthcare landscape.
And this approval, it represents a monumental shift, both technologically and commercially. For listeners trying to gauge the impact, the core question isn't really if this pill will work. The trial data confirms that.
Right, the efficacy is there.
The efficacy is there. The question is how they overcame the chemical barrier to get the same results as an injection, and crucially, what the comprehensive safety data is telling us, especially from post-market vigilance.
The real-world data.
The real-world data. We're talking about high-priority adverse events, so we're moving beyond the headlines to the chemistry, the logistics, and, the real-world patient friction.
And the numbers that got us here are, well, they're just staggering. They instantly validate the concept.
Mm-hmm.
The clinical trials, specifically OASIS-4, showed that the 25 milligram oral pill delivered a mean weight loss of 16.6% over 64 weeks.
Which is statistically, it's right on par with the weekly injectable version.
It's identical. And for context, you're talking about 1 in 3 participants losing 20% or more of their body weight.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pill that truly performs like the shot.
Which brings us right to the first major hurdle, the science. Semaglutide is a peptide.
Okay. What does that mean in simple terms?
Think of it as a relatively large, complex chain of amino acids. Our bodies are just designed to break those chains down. So generally, if you ingest a peptide, your stomach acid and your digestive enzymes, they treat it like protein soup.
They just destroy it.
It's destroyed. It gets metabolized before it can ever be absorbed into the bloodstream in any real quantity.
So how did they build a chemical bunker to get this fragile molecule through the acid bath of the stomach?
The breakthrough is in the formulation. It's a co-formulated compound called saccharoprosate sodium, or SNS-C for short.
That's an
SNS-C. It's a highly effective intestinal permeation enhancer. It works by locally increasing the pH, so it makes the environment right around the pill less acidic. And it also slightly changes the structure of the stomach wall cells, just temporarily.
Sort of opens a door for it.
It opens a tiny door, allowing the semaglutide to slip through and get absorbed right there in the stomach. And critically, SNS-C already has urea status, generally recognized as safe, which really simplified its path.
Hold on, a 25 milligram pill just to get it through the stomach with a special enhancer, that sounds incredibly inefficient. What's the actual pharmacokinetic reality here? How much of the drug actually makes it?
You've hit on the key trade-off, and your instinct is dead on. Despite the scientific feat of SNS-C, the absolute bioavailability of oral semaglutide it's shockingly low.
How low?
We estimate it's only about 1% to 2%.
Wow.
So to compensate for that massive loss, they had to deliver a giant dose, 25 milligrams daily, just to reach the necessary therapeutic concentration.
Okay, so let's make that concentration understandable.
Okay, think of it like a car. It needs a certain level of fuel in the tank to drive, right? That's the steady state concentration. For non-diabetic patients, the 25 milligram pill gets an average concentration of around 77 nanomoles per liter.
77. And how does that compare to the shot?
That 77 is essentially identical to the fuel level you get from the 2.4 milligram weekly injections. So you see, they put 25 times the gas in to account for all the leakage, and they achieve the same level. That's the successful trade-off.
But that successful trade-off, that comes with a real operational burden for the patient. Which brings us to the fine print. This is not a pill you can just swallow and forget.
Absolutely not. It requires a commitment. The precision needed for SNS-C to work is the critical caveat that's going to determine real-world adherence. There are 3 non-negotiable rules. First, must be taken once a day, empty stomach, first thing in the morning. Second, with no more than 4 ounces of plain water, that's about half a cup. Absolutely no other liquids.
And the third rule, the true pain point for any morning routine.
The patient has to wait a minimum of 30 minutes before eating, drinking anything else, or taking any other oral medications. That 30-minute fast is required to let SNS-C do its job.
And that 30-minute wait is the Achilles heel we're going to come back to. But let's circle back to the patient concentrations. We said 77 nanomoles for the general population. Is that consistent across all patient types?
It is not. And this is a really critical nuance. When you look at patients with type 2 diabetes or T2D, the average concentration drops significantly, down to about 44 nanomoles per liter. This lower exposure suggests, reduced bioavailability in a specific group. And as a result, those T2D patients had less absolute weight reduction in the trials.
That is huge. So the pill is inherently less effective for the patient population that, often needs the most metabolic help. This creates a really tough choice for doctors.
Exactly. Start with the pill knowing it might not work as well, or just go straight to the injection. It adds a layer of complexity you don't want for broad market uptake.
Okay, so now we know how they built it. Let's switch gears and talk about who this drug is for and its expanded applications, which go way beyond just weight.
The core indications are massive. Chronic weight management, yes, but also vitally, the reduction of major adverse cardiovascular events, or MACE. We're talking CV, death, non-fatal heart attack, or non-fatal stroke.
So it's moving into preventative cardiology.
Big time. And we should also mention the newest frontier for this drug class, which shows its potential in these severe complications of obesity.
Right.
It's worth noting the Wegovy injection also got accelerated approval for a very serious liver condition, non-cirrhotic metabolic dysfunction-associated steatohepatitis, or MASH.
That's the new term for NASH.
That's a new term for NASH, yeah. And this is for adults with moderate to advanced liver fibrosis.
And why the accelerated approval for the injection there?
The histological data was just phenomenal. After 72 weeks, the resolution of the liver inflammation, without any worsening of the scarring, it went from 34% in the placebo group to 63% in the Wegovy group.
63%. That's a massive clinical win.
It is. But, and this is crucial, the safety and effectiveness of the oral tablet for this specific MASH indication have not yet been established.
Got it. Now, when we look across the trial data, the demographics, what else stands out?
Well, beyond the lower weight reduction in T2D patients, we also saw that the association with gastrointestinal adverse events, which we're about to get into, was significantly greater in subgroups over 65 years old.
So older patients might need a slower dose titration.
They need a much slower, more cautious approach to manage that discomfort and keep them on the drug.
Which brings us to section 3. Let's talk tolerability and risk, starting with the unavoidable cost of GLP-1s, the GI side effects.
Right. These are the #1 cause of people stopping the drug. And they're not minor, especially during that initial 16-week dose ramp-up.
What are the numbers?
In adults, we saw nausea in up to 44% of participants, diarrhea up to 30%, and vomiting up to 24%.
44%. If nearly half of your potential patient population experiences nausea, the system has to be ready for a massive influx of calls.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. When the drug moves from those controlled trials into the real world, the post-marketing data often uncovers rarer, more serious signals.
So what's surfaced from the FDA's adverse event reporting system, or FARRs?
We saw several high-priority signals, the most urgent one centered on pancreatitis. This adverse event was classified as having strong clinical priority.
What does that mean?
It earned the highest priority score of 8 in our analysis. So while acute pancreatitis was low in trials, about 0.2 cases per 100 patient years, the post-market reports also flagged obstructive pancreatitis. So vigilance around abdominal pain is essential.
Okay, a priority score of 8, the highest clinical urgency.
Got it.
Now what about cancer, specifically pancreatic cancer, given the history here?
Yes, and this needs careful interpretation. Pancreatic carcinoma itself was a weak signal, a score of 3. However, the analysis showed a strong association between semaglutide exposure and the occurrence of pancreatic cancer in the reported cases.
An association, not a direct cause.
A strong association. And metastatic pancreatic carcinoma was flagged as a moderate priority, a score of 5, so it mandates continued caution.
And what about the kidney issues we always hear about?
It's generally a domino effect, not direct toxicity. The problem starts with the severe GI events, the vomiting, the diarrhea. That leads to dehydration. And that dehydration has led to post-marketing reports of acute kidney injury, sometimes severe enough to require hospitalization or even hemodialysis.
Okay, so let's quickly list the other big systemic warnings people need to know.
First, the boxed warning is still there. It's strictly contraindicated in patients with a personal or family history of medullary thyroid carcinoma, MTC, or MN2 syndrome. That comes from the rodent studies. Second, the heart. Treatment led to a mean increase of 1 to 4 beats per minute in resting heart rate. And notably, 26% of adults had maximum increases of 20 beats per minute or more.
And the surgical risk.
That is critical patient education. The drug delays gastric emptying, so you have food just sitting in the stomach. This poses a serious risk of pulmonary aspiration.
Where stomach contents go into the lungs.
Exactly. During anesthesia, patients have to tell their providers before any surgery.
And finally, that post-marketing analysis turned up some completely new things, right? Issues that weren't even on the label.
That's right. 17 new and unexpected GI adverse events. Things like dry mouth, but also more complex issues like hypophagia, which means abnormally reduced food intake. It just confirms you only learn the full safety profile of a drug after it hits the mainstream.
Okay, let's pivot hard to Section 4, market dynamics. The approval of this pill, even with the strict protocol, is a monumental win for the manufacturer.
It's a profound scientific victory. They successfully moved a large peptide, a complex biologic that should require an injection, into a scalable oral format. This simplifies the supply chain, it reduces reliance on auto-injectors, and it removes that psychological barrier of the needle for millions.
But the irony is that the very complexity they overcame with SNS-C, that 1 to 2% absorption rate, forced them into that 30-minute dosing caveat. Doesn't that immediately create a massive vulnerability for competitors?
It creates the competitive opening of the decade. Novo Nordisk has the first mover advantage, but that required 30-minute morning sacrifice is an enormous point of friction. And this is exactly where competitors like Eli Lilly can pounce.
So tell us about that main competitive threat.
We're talking about Lilly's candidate, orforglipron. This is a true small molecule GLP-1, maybe coming in 2026. Because it's chemically small, not a peptide, it doesn't need SNS-C, and is expected to have no food or water restrictions.
So a major convenience advantage.
A decisive advantage, potentially. And with Pfizer's attempt to donablepron failing due to liver safety, the oral race is really a two-horse competition now. It's the complex semaglutide pill versus the potentially friction-free orforglipron.
So what does this all mean when we zoom out to the strategic level?
The strategic importance of the pill for Novo Nordisk is undeniable. It dramatically increases the total patient population willing to start treatment. They are prioritizing market access right now. Even with the complex fasting schedule, the concept of the pill solidifies their dominant position.
But when you combine the sheer volume of these high-priority adverse events with the revolutionary effectiveness of the drug class, it raises a really provocative question for the future, doesn't it?
It does. Will the eventual availability of truly convenient, low side effect oral therapies from competitors like one with no 30-minute fast, maybe less GI burden that fundamentally challenge the current GLP-1 standard? Right now, the market is all about slow dose escalation and tolerability management. A friction-free pill could make that entire model obsolete on day one.
And that shift from efficacy at any cost to efficacy with maximum convenience leads us right to the part of the show you stick around for. This is not financial advice.
Disclaimer delivered. The FDA approval of oral Wegovy is a huge commercial win for Novo Nordisk, but those dosing constraints, the empty stomach, the half cup of water, the 30-minute wait, that is a significant hurdle to long-term patient satisfaction.
A market vulnerability just waiting to be appreciated by Wall Street.
Our outrageous but plausible trade idea today is to go long on Eli Lilly, specifically betting heavily on the successful launch and market penetration of their oral GLP-1 candidate, orforglipron.
Okay, what's the thesis?
The thesis is that the market is celebrating the sheer existence of an oral GLP-1, but is severely underestimating how much the real-world friction of a 30-minute mandatory fast will genuinely annoy patients.
The annoyance factor.
The annoyance factor. If orforglipron delivers on unrestricted dosing, no food or water rules, it will instantly become the superior consumer choice. It could capture massive market share based purely on ease of use, even if its ultimate weight loss is marginally lower. Inconvenience is the silent killer of market penetration, and we believe Lilly's pill will exploit that consumer friction perfectly.
A compelling argument. Consumer preference defeating complex protocol. That is all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.